The Witches of Dathomir were a specific band of Force users that weren't Jedi or Sith. They had very unique abilities that they used throughout time, and there was also a sect of evil ones called the Night Sisters. Um, and their first appearance, in terms of actually being written, was in the EU. Um, I believe it was the book The Courtship of Princess Leia, where Han Solo and the Prince Isildur, I believe his name is, they were fighting over basically marrying her. And during this time, Luke Skywalker winds up on Dathomir, and he encounters the both the Night Sisters and the witches. And I know that the early canon did not actually have them being Zabraks, but they became Zabraks later on. And Zabraks are a specific species, the same one that Darth Maul is. Then later on, the Yuuzhan Vong War occurs, and because of their unique abilities, they're able to fight back against them much better than other people because their abilities were more aligned closer to the dark side. And one of the things that was the big difference was that dark side abilities, you bind the force to your will, where Jedi abilities is the force flows through you. And the difference there, when it came to the Yuuzhan Vong, was they could not be sensed in the force, and you couldn't do things like force push. But if you did things like, you know, shooting electricity out of your fingers, stuff like that, that would work better because of their unique uh, lack of force, essentially. I'll go into more detail on the Yuuzhan Vong and their story later. Um, so it was Dathomir was pretty close to the Hapes Consortium, and usually when the Hapens are part of the story, you'll often get Dathomir as well. Then after the Yuuzhan Vong War, the next big story arc involved during the Fate of the Jedi, when the Lost Tribe of the Sith came, and they tried to convince the Night Sisters to join them, and well, it wound up not working out so great for the Night Sisters because they got betrayed by the Sith, which, yeah, that's what Sith do. And they were forced to teach a lot of these abilities to them. Um, and of course, during the early Clone Wars, they created a character called Asajj Ventress, and she came from Dathomir. And then, of course, you had Darth Maul being handed to Darth Sidious and being trained because they didn't want him to wind up being a Night Brother. Um, and so the canon that came from Clone Wars seemed to have changed some of the things that came from the books, which, that was something that George Lucas himself worked on. So that was one of the things where it's like, okay, um, but none of the changes really did that much. Um, it's something that makes me wonder how things are going to go under Disney, especially because they actually still can use a lot of these characters. Um, and the whole thing with the abilities definitely made it interesting. It was called sorceries rather than, like force abilities. Um, and one of the other things is they would often bind rancors to their will. And these rancors were sometimes quite a bit larger than the one that appeared in Return of the Jedi. This rancor, was apparently like a smaller one, and it well, because it was kept in captivity, it didn't have the rudimentary level of intelligence that other rancors do. But the big thing is that it's an interesting thing that they still can work with in the new canon, but I don't know if it's gonna be good or not. We'll find out.